Awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. If you just joined, my name is Mohammed Kanafar. I am a product manager here at Confirmation Thomson Reuters. My main focus is APIs, but I'm lucky enough to dabble all over the product. Today's topic will be mainly focused on our API offerings. What we'll do is we'll give you a general overview of what Confirmation is, just to kind of get you up to speed if you're new. And then we'll start talking about our API products, and we'll jump into some more in-depth conversations about those. We'll also go ahead and just identify some next steps. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A section. Leave all your questions in the chat, and I'll go ahead and address them all at the end. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So a little bit about myself. My name is Mohammed Kanafar. As I just mentioned, I'm a senior PM here at TR. I lead our API teams. I have been doing this role for a little while now. It's a very amazing role. I thoroughly enjoy it. APIs are very much my bread and butter. It's very fun to work with our customers and interacting, solutioning with them, and designing with them. Our product is very robust and very scalable. I thoroughly enjoy the work that we do with our customers. My main focus is regional and global integrations. We typically partner with financial institutions, so oftentimes the responder on the other end, mainly banks. We also have a large focus with accounting firms. So you will see today of some of the offerings we have for our firm partners, as well as some third-party applications. Think of applications that are not necessarily a firm or a bank, but tools that our partners are using. Outside of Confirmation, I really just enjoy hiking and cycling. Most of my life is very much just APIs. So it's really just the funnest part of my day, really. A little bit of an agenda today. We'll start off with just a Confirmation overview. We'll do a bit of a general description just to bring you a little bit up to speed. We'll talk about some security aspects. I know some folks always have those questions. And then we'll discuss some of our API offerings and just give you a broad overview of what we'll be touching on today. And then in the next section of the meeting, we'll talk in more specifics about each offering. We'll discuss 4 main offerings today: single sign-on, our confirmation workflow APIs, so that will very much cover just the confirmation workflow. We'll talk a little bit about a standalone offering that is often a good place to start for our partners, and it's really around billing and how you do month-end reconciliation. And finally, we'll end with our integration with a sister product of ours called Engagement Manager. You might already be a user of Engagement Manager. If you are not, I'll give you a general overview of what that looks like and how Confirmation is built into the platform directly. Finally, at the end, we'll talk a little bit about some next steps, and then, like I said, a little bit of Q&A. Let's go ahead and start just very high level of what Confirmation is. Maybe this is your first day on the job. Maybe you haven't done this in a while. So I'll just go ahead and give you a brief overview. We have a customer, let's just say Acme Incorporated, and they are being audited. A typical audit season is somewhere around the middle of, somewhere in the beginning of the year in Q1. That's where what we call busy season. And this customer is being audited by the auditor, so an accounting firm. The auditor needs to know more about the financial information or the information at the bank for said customer. To get more information, what they will do is they will send a confirmation to the bank, or what we call the responder sometimes. Before they can do so, they first need to get consent, which is step 1 right here. This is typically an e-signature. Once they get consent for the audit, an auditor will submit requests to the customer, to the bank on behalf of the customer, and the bank will return with the information asked for. We have several different types of accounts, or what we call forms, supported, and those typically vary by essentially the type of account or oftentimes just a region. In North America, oftentimes it's a cash balance account. You might know it as a deposit account. Outside of North America, you're very much looking at something we call consolidated forms, which essentially, here is the customer, give me all the account information. Moving a little bit forward of what confirmations we do offer, we are not just a vendor for bank or financial confirmations. We also work with legal confirmers, so legal responders. We also support AR and AP confirmations, and employee benefit plans, 401ks, as well as private equity. This is what our product supports today. For the sake of our conversation around APIs, I would like to note that we only support banks, ARAP, and private equity. We do not support, as of today, EVP and legal. However, that is something that we can explore if you feel there is more of a use case. A little bit about security. I like to add this slide in just to make sure we cover our bases. This is a common question I get from a lot of our partners. We are certified by many third parties and many certifications out there. We take security very, very seriously, and it's usually top of mind, especially in my world. A couple of call outs. I know this is a very busy slide. We do SOC 1 and SOC 2 audits twice annually, and that covers the API and the user interface, the UI. We also get pen tested twice annually as well by external credible third-party pen testers. What you're here for? Let's talk a little bit about our offerings today, our API automations, or what we can offer. The first and most simple product we offer is single sign-on. Single sign-on is a quick bang for your buck and often very much used product by our partners with other vendors. If you are familiar with how this works, it is essentially a method to ensure security as well as a good user experience in our UI. This is one of the offerings that we do provide for our partners. It is usually a standalone product and quite easy to implement. We'll then jump into automating the confirmation workflow. I'll introduce you to what we call our phased approach. And in essence, what we'll be tackling is the confirmation workflow via API in phases. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about what the value of the phase approach is, but just remember that keyword phases. I think it'll really help you for the sake of this conversation. Next up, we'll talk about another standalone API that we provide for our customers. It can be combined with any one of these you see here. And we have definitely seen that, but essentially it's what we call engagement number upload and billing transaction reports. This is an API that's not necessarily for the confirmation workflow, but it's more around your month-end reconciliation and your billing processes. Finally, we'll talk about how we've partnered with our sister product, Engagement Manager, and how confirmation is fully supported in that UI or in that product using our APIs. One last note I always like to mention as well. One of my favorite parts about our product is just what we're guaranteeing to our customers. It's a very fun and easy to use API product, as fun as APIs can be, obviously. It often offers our partners a lot of just flexibility. It's quite modular, it's very secure, it's scalable, and it's a product really built to provide you with efficiencies, time savings, and just make your busy seasons a little bit less hectic. SSO, single sign-on. If you are familiar with SSO and have used it with other products, other vendors, it is very much the same thing for us. If you are not familiar with SSO, you might have already used it and you're not aware of it. What SSO does is it allows you to log in to confirmation or any other vendor's product or any other vendor using your internal credentials. You probably have an employee ID or an employee email and a password. You're inputting that into a UI of some sort, and that is sending you a message, maybe a message on your phone or like an authentication app. You're doing your Face ID or you're inputting a code, and that's allowing you to enter the product you're trying to access. That's exactly the SSO workflow we offer. What we do is we provide an SSO connection between your system and Confirmation's user interface. And what you will be able to do is any customer using our user interface will now be able to log in using SSO and not using a regular username and password. In addition to this just giving you a better user experience for your employees, it can be a little bit hard to remember all your usernames and passwords. It gives you full control of who has access to confirmation and who has access to the confidential firm and client data. The beauty about SSO is the user will exist on your side of the equation. If a customer or if an employee were to move on to a different group, or if they were to resign or find a new job, they would be removed off of your system. And the moment they're moved off there, they are no longer allowed to use Confirmations user interface. Like I said, this gives you full control of the security and full control of the compliance. It is quite often a regulatory obligation to have SSO, and we understand that. That's why we kept it really simple. We offer a very fast integration time for SSO. The record is just under a day. Um, I've personally done it in under an hour on a time crunch. So if this is something that you do not have today, it is a really, really easy product to onboard to, and will give you a lot of brownie points with your security team. Jumping into the confirmation workflow, in this section, we're really going to focus on what you can start automating or start moving off of our user interface and applying those workflows using our APIs. Before I jump in too far ahead, I want you to sort of think about what your typical workflows are today. You are probably building or using an internal audit tool proprietary to your system, or you might be using a third-party platform such as Power BI, Power Automate, other Microsoft tools, ERP systems out there. Snow is also a common one. And you're using these tools to manage your audit, and then at some point you're forced to go into our UI to send a confirmation, get the materialized PDF or get the final artifact you're looking for, and then go back to your tool. The confirmation workflow is just a small piece of your audit. The idea behind our APIs is how much of that workflow can we move away from our user interface and provide it on your internal tool is an option we see a lot, or provide it on a third-party platform tool, depending on where you're at in your audit journey. Another thing I want you to sort of imagine in your head is you are probably moving to a centralized team that's working on the confirmation workflow, or you might still be decentralized. And both of those systems are also something our APIs can help with. We keep it flexible, we keep it modular. That way, you're sort of able to adapt your workflows using our APIs. And the ultimate goal is we're trying to make your workflows more efficient, your uh, busy seasons less busy, and hopefully save you a little bit of billable hours and billable time. I'm going to start really high level. The flywheel you're going to see right here is going to be referred to often. So just kind of look at what this is doing. What I'm going to show you here is how confirmations work. What is the process of sending a confirmation? The first step is you're going to edit a client and signer into our user interface. So the idea here is you're auditing Acme Incorporated. At Acme Incorporated, there's a legal entity name, and you have a signer. So this is a VP of Finance, a controller, somebody in charge with signing authority on that side that's saying, yes, accounting firm, I'm allowing you to audit me. So you're uploading this information to our platform. The next thing you're doing is you're adding the bank account information. So Acme Incorporated, they have account 12345. It's a checking account at name your favorite bank. And you are just uploading all that information into our user interface again. Now that you've set up the data, the next step here is asking for authorization. So you're going to go ahead and send authorization to the signer that you had in the first step right here. And the idea is that VP of controller or that VP of finance, that controller that we just talked about, that person would say, yes, I approve this audit. You may proceed. Please send a confirmation to the bank. Once you have authorization, we'll go ahead and initiate the confirmation or confirmations to the responder, to the bank. And from there, it is very much a waiting game. You are waiting for the bank to answer. So you're just checking statuses. Is it pending? Is it pending? Has it been confirmed? You're just basically waiting for that final confirmation from the responder. And the idea is you've asked for information and you're looking to download a PDF, and said PDF will have that information you asked for, or multiple PDFs, and you will save that into your work papers tool, whatever that may be. Sometimes that's a designated tool, sometimes that's SharePoint, sometimes that's your local drive. It varies by firm and by auditor and by engagement team and by centralized team. So go ahead here, the last step, as I said, you download the completed confirmation. And you keep doing this every single year, every single audit period. What we have done is we took two circles of this flywheel. Every two circles, sorry, we have split up into what we call our phases. And these phases will allow you to slowly but surely remove some of the UI workflows and move them to the API. And what you're going to get there is a centralization of your workflows, efficiencies, and time savings. Our first one quick note is we do start at the end. And the reason for that is you're going to get more bang for your buck and more value at the end of the confirmation process. And that's what we call phase one. Phase one is very much your checking statuses. And when you finally get a confirm, you would like your completed confirmations, so the PDFs I just mentioned, to be auto-downloaded somewhere. The status checking is often some form of business intelligence tool, or just even an email or an Excel of some sort. And then the download completed confirmations, a common one is just uploading it into a SharePoint by engagement number as a folder structure. I will have some screenshots and examples here in a bit, so I'll show you a visual just a little bit. Once you've tackled phase one, this is, again, easiest to integrate, biggest bang for your buck. You get time value savings. You get value and time savings basically instantly. You can now move over to phase two. So we'll keep going counterclockwise to request client authorization and initiate confirmations. So now you know you're going to audit Acme Inc. You know that the signer is generally the same or might have changed, but you know you could update that. The account might not be too different. You might be adding new accounts. You might have to edit those accounts. Those are all here at the first step. But once I have that information, it would be very nice if I can auto send the client authorization. I would be very nice if I would have some form of business intelligence on if the signer has authorized this information. And then once I finally have the authorization, it'd be very nice if the confirmation was auto sent for me. Like I said, you know you're going to audit Acme Incorporated in 2025 and 2026 and etc. And you generally know the signer and you might know the account and you might know some of this information. It'd be really nice if some of this was just done for you. Once you've tackled phase two, you've already done phase one, so you're gaining the benefits of phase one already. All that's left now is phase three and four. We split them up, but they're quite similar. And the idea is these last two circles. As a firm, I would love to add and edit client and signer information, and I would love to add and edit account information. In general, I have a database in Excel, something with this information. And what I'm doing today is likely uploading it onto confirmation and then inheriting it in my other tool, or doing it in my tool and inheriting in confirmation. I'm doing a lot of double dipping, maybe even triple dipping sometimes. It would be nice if the cleanup was happening for me year by year. Of course, we won't know who the account, if the account has changed, if the client has changed, the signer has changed, you would still have to do that. But if it hasn't, then that information could be uniform across all your systems. And that's what we call phases three and four. We split them up just to make it a little bit more palpable, a little bit more easy. Phase three is the client and signers, and phase four is the added and edited account information. As I was kind of mentioning, we tackle this in phases. You do not have to work on all phases together. We've seen a lot of success in the phased approach. The idea is start with phase one, gain value as early as day 20, and then start tackling phase two, and then start tackling phase three, and start tackling phase four. Some of our partners go out to phase one, and that's good enough for them. Some love it and want to go all the way to phase two. Some go all the way to phase four. We are open. We work with you throughout the process. I will discuss at the end what that looks like, so please stay tuned. And as I mentioned in the other slide, every single phase will eliminate one of those circles. If you're familiar with our user interface, it's going to remove a piece of that user interface. One more thing I want to note on this slide right here is it's quite common for us to see third-party business intelligence tools integrate to our APIs. We do support that. We also support things not like so we support things like Power BI and Tableau. Those are quite common, but we support ERP systems as well. That's a very common use case. So things like Workday, SAP, or Star. If you're not familiar of that workflow internally, your finance team or accounting team will likely know what Workday, SAP, and Star are doing as part of this process. We'll touch a little bit more about that in the section on engagement number and billing transaction. So as I mentioned, there is the flywheel right here. It is something we'll keep having for each one of these slides. So kind of keep this in mind throughout the process. This first phase is the one that is going to give you check. This allow you to automatically check statuses and auto download completed confirmations. Once you've sent a confirmation to the bank, you are now in this infinite waiting game until the bank responds. What would be really nice is if I'm getting auto updates to the status of the confirmation. And it would be really nice if that confirmation is finally completed, that the PDF and all artifacts associated with it would auto download into my work papers tool, into a centralized file location, into an email of some sort is sent. There's different ways to skin this cat. The most common one I've seen is really a centralized database set up by engagement number, client ID, project code, etc. As I've mentioned, this is the biggest bang for your buck in terms of wetting your beak and gaining efficiencies. I've seen partners onboard to this product as late as December during the year and then gain value in it in January, right when things start to heat up. It's an excellent tool to give visibility for external teams that are now working with the centralized team. So if you have a centralized office where you are sending confirmations, but the individual auditors across the country or across the world even need to have visibility, this is an excellent phase where you at least can see scope. It's also very good to update your stakeholders. In a second here, I'll show you some of the stuff we've seen with Power BI or other Power Apps tools. And finally, it's a great way to have a bird's eye view of what is going on. Like I said, this is more of a reporting service, easier to onboard, not necessarily impacting the confirmation itself, but just making your life a little bit easier. I'll call it out right now. I've seen firms gain weeks of time savings just from this phase. The idea really is I just don't have to log into the user interface that often. And then if the confirmation is there, I don't have to individually download each confirmation. If you have 1,000 confirmations that are outstanding, that could be a very, very tedious job for anybody. To give you a visual of what this looked like, this is just a demo version of a Power BI. It is completely connected to our APIs in the backend. But the idea here is as a firm, or as a stakeholder within the firm, I want a high-level bird's eye view of what is going on. I'd like to know how's client 123 doing? How's engagement number ABC doing? How's my personal audits, not my teammates' audits? What about this office? How's it doing? Am I behind or did I provide the right as of date? What is the status overall using these graphs? Like I said, this is just a demo. We built this just to show our customers. The APIs are really modular. If you know your way around some of the Power Apps and Power Tools that are offered by third parties, you can do a lot and honestly probably do a much better job than what we did. You can refine this to what you need and what information your stakeholders are asking for. And most importantly, you'll have a lot more efficiencies and keep your customer who's being audited a little bit more happy. One quick call out here, I have it sorted for the completed going up. The reason for that is I wanted to show you that it would be really nice that if anything that was completed, for it to jump over to a SharePoint folder somewhere, maybe split it up by engagement number. I say this not because I think it's a good idea. I say this because I've seen maybe 5 or 6 firms do this worldwide. Very common approach, makes life significantly easier for a lot of our partners. As mentioned earlier, if phase one is doing it for you, that's amazing. We will support you throughout the life cycle that you are our partners. But a lot of our partners do like to go in and gain more efficiencies from our APIs. And that's when we jump into phase two. The lovely flywheel comes back. We've now eliminated completed confirmations and we've eliminated statuses. I now want to tackle another part of the confirmation workflow, which is client authorizations and initiate confirmations. As mentioned earlier, the signer is known to me. It's Mohammed the signer. That's already been uploaded into the platform. I know that email. Now I want to send them a client authorization because eventually I want their signature. I would really love it if this signature was sent 20, 30 days before I start my engagement so that I can get a valid signature earlier before I need to start. More than that, I'd like it to auto-send reminders because Mohammed the signer is a bit slow and doesn't check his emails. All of that can be done using our APIs. On a even more interesting level, you can check the status of the signer. Did you forget to send a signer authorization? Has it expired for some reason? Is it still pending? Is it active from the last time you asked for it? All of that is available via API as well. Once the signer finally gives you authorization, so they finally give you a little e-signature, I'd like the confirmation to be auto-sent or have some level of automation, and you do have some flexibility on how that works. But the idea here is, again, I'm auditing Acme Corp. I'm going to send a confirmation for 12/31/2025. Might as well do that automatically the moment I get authorization from the customer. And that's what the second half of phase two will allow you to do. Some of the key values you folks are getting from phase two is, like I said, you're eliminating the manual processes. The client authorizations will be sent to you completely automatically. You don't necessarily have to keep track and go into our user interface, check if the signer is approved, and do this over and over and over again for many signers and many clients and many accounts. You have a beautiful dashboard I'll show you in just a little bit that will keep track of all the statuses for you. You don't have to log in too much into our UIs because we're trying to avoid some of the repetitive work. A lot of that, just because there's a lot of automation in the background, it's going away. And finally, since you've done the work from phase one, you are very much just piggybacking off of the value you've already gained. Go ahead and show you a visual. This is very similar to what I just showed you earlier, except this is the statuses of authorizations. Again, if you know your way around Power Apps, you can integrate to our APIs. These filters, if I were to actually click on some of these, you would see our APIs being called and the data being updated. If I only care about my own data, then I can just click on my own name. If I care about my team's data, because I'm a manager, I can click on my team's data and not worry about the rest of the firm. There's a few ways to skin this cat. Just looking at how this works, or just looking at a simple example, I'm trying to audit XYZ business supplies. Frankie Murphy has already given me active signature, which is absolutely amazing, but Jacob Smith has not, and I am getting a little bit impatient about this until I realize I haven't actually requested it to Jacob Smith. This view allows me to identify problems much faster than having to log into our UI. I might have forgotten my password, but if I do, or I might be using SSO, depends. And then I have to go find Jacob Smith, find the client, find the signer, check if I've authorized, click the authorization. I'm back in this manual game. This view would kind of allow me to do so. This is just a representation in Power BI. There are much better ways to do this. I mentioned earlier that there is the third-party route or the internal route. You can also imagine a view like this on internal products or internal audit tools. Many firms are working towards an internal audit tool of some sort, sort of a one solution to rule them all. That is very much supported by us. It's use cases we've seen worldwide, and oftentimes there is a view of some sort that looks similar to this. Now that you've gained the value from phase one, gained the value from phase two, it's now time to get rid of anything that involves data entry. And that's what we call phases three and four. The looking at the flywheel again, this phase will eliminate the need to add and edit client signer information. That's what we call phase 3. And then phase 4 is adding and editing account information. Let's go back to the example I used earlier. We have, you likely have a centralized database or multiple centralized databases, and you're trying to clean things up, but all the information for your accounts and your signers, your clients, they all exist right there. And you have a team that's updating that information, and you're going to be using that data throughout the audit process. I've also seen the other way around. I've seen some firms just not have all their data properly consolidated. So in fact, the cleanest data is at confirmation. What phases 3 and phase 4 allow you to do is, what if we could sync the data and have one source of truth? Oftentimes that source of truth would be the third party or the internal audit tool. And your engagement teams would only be working in that section or in that tool. And effectively, what confirmation becomes is a source of truth, a database, a record of history, or just a way to confirm or quickly edit information if need be. We've seen this with partners all over. The idea very much is, I do not want to manage the different data. I would just like to have it all governed in in one location with minimal human error and high data quality. An additional benefit of this is, now that you own the data, you are able to do queries and insights and just drive whatever information you want. You have less of a need to ask us for reporting. All of that information is completely available on your side. And then once a year, when Acme Incorporated changes their name to Acme Co., you just have to update that wherever that information is. Or if you are generating a new WBS code or engagement number, so say Acme Co. engagement 2025 or 2024 or 2026 or 2028, then you just have to update that in one place, and then both systems will know what's going on. Your teams don't have to double up on the work. It's all in one place. Phases 3 and 4 also give you the flexibility of filtering out old data. A common use case from our partners is, we have so much data, and many of the folks who inputted those data have moved on in their audit or essentially tax and accounting careers, and their focus really might not be confirmation. So you can sort of filter that out for the past 5 years, the past 2 years, or last activity date, or something like that, depending on what you would like. I did mention something very key, and it will become important in the next section of the presentation, which is the engagement number. Engagement numbers are also fully supported on our side. You might know it as a matter number, a WBS code, a job code, etc. So hold on to that thought, a little bit of a foreshadow for next section. Finally, you've heard me use a couple of examples and say, hey, we have customers using this, and I've worked with firms and whatnot. I did want to just add this slide. I get the pleasure of working with firms all over the world on our APIs. And I've seen it all. I've seen phases 1 through 4. I've seen just phase 3 on its own. I've seen phase 2. I've seen anything and everything. But what is true is, all of our partners are gaining efficiencies, and all of our partners are enjoying the product. Some quick fun facts for you folks. Over 1 million confirmation requests have been sent via API, and that number is growing exponentially every year. Really, our partners are enjoying the easiness of the API tools they're building out, and then relying less and less on our UI. On the bank side, we have 26% of global confirmations are auto-responded by API. That is one of the key reasons why you might get faster response rates from some of our global banks. And then 15% of the world's confirmations in total are sent via API. I've mentioned this already. Global product. I've personally worked with firms in all of those regions mentioned on the slide there. So US, UK, APAC, EMEA, and ANZ. One very interesting part of this job is, firms want the exact same thing and are headed in the exact same direction when it comes to how they're managing their audits and how they're managing confirmations. And what I hear all the time is, we want to make sure it's secure, we want to make sure it's robust, scalable, efficient, and we just want to do less work on confirmations. We want stuff to be done for us in the background. A couple quick shout outs I'll mention here. We have integrate over 100 integrations worldwide. Top 10 firms in the US have all integrated at least one of our phases. I mentioned earlier, we do have one firm that saved 18 days worth of billable hours in busy season 2024. And a bit on robustness, just for your tech teams, if they ask you, we handle over 100 million API calls a year. Lifetime, I couldn't even tell you how much. It's a quite mature product at this point, and we do have a really low error rate. And I'll talk a little bit more about production support in a little bit here, but in general, our error rate is very, very low, and we monitor it a lot to make sure it's robust. To summarize really quickly, we have 4 phases. Each one of the phases is going to cover one piece of the confirmation workflow. Phase 1, statuses and completed confirmations. Phase 2, client authorizations and initiations. Phase 3, and phase 4, that's client signer account data, all in one phase. The next product we're going to talk about is what we call engagement number upload and billing transaction report. It is not 100% related to the flywheel I keep mentioning or the confirmation workflow, but it is a good standalone product and a nice way to gain some efficiencies if you're not ready to fully tackle the phased approach we've mentioned. One last thing about the phased approach, you don't necessarily have to follow it. It's very much a la carte. We just recommend the phased approach because that's where we've seen successes. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about engagement number upload and billing transaction report. The typical workflow of a confirmation at the end of the month is once you've sent off the confirmations, your finance or accounting team is going to generate a report in our user interface called the Office Activity Report. And what they're going to do is they're going to filter for the engagement number. You might know it as a matter number, a job code, a code number, a WBS code. I've heard different words worldwide. And you might also filter by a secondary identifier, but they're essentially going to use these 2 identifiers to compile the costs of the confirmation and then pass along those costs to the client that's being audited. If you are not familiar with this workflow, if your accounting team or finance team is definitely familiar with it, and they probably don't love it. It is often a manual process. From one firm, I've heard that could be as long as 15 days. Sometimes a lot more, actually. And it typically involves an ERP system. Very common ones I've seen in the industry are Workday, Star, and SAP. And I'll mention those in just a little bit. What this offering gives to you folks is, so there are 2 products. There's the engagement number upload system, and there's the billing transaction report. I call them yin and yang because they're quite similar and they go really well together. But the idea is, what if I could consolidate the engagement numbers being used by the customer, by the auditors? The person sending the confirmation must use pre-approved engagement numbers. And then at the end of the month, I would like what I called the Office Activity Report earlier, so that month-end report, I would like that to be passed along via API to the ERP system that you folks are using. Let's talk engagement number upload first. As a firm, I am getting new WBS codes, new codes every year, tagging those to the client, so Acme Inc. It has its own engagement number, probably a product description, and maybe a couple of other fields, say up to 5 fields, which is what we support, 5 fields. These are 5 unique fields that are providing you information about said engagement. What would be really nice, and that's what engagement number upload offers you, is the ability to send us this information via API on a daily basis as you onboard more customers. In just a second here, I'll show you a demo of what that looks like. But the usual reaction I get from our partners is, this is really good and really easy for us. Amazing. Once that data is sent, it shows up as a drop-down menu in our user interface where an auditor cannot send a confirmation without having one of the pre-approved selections tagged to that confirmation. And those pre-approved selections or list is provided by the firm on an automatic job every day, every week, every 3 days, up to you. We support it all. At the end of the month, the finance team will go into the user interface, download the Office activity report, and all the engagement numbers are uniform because there is no fat fingering, there is no human error. It all followed one specific structure. The custom fields also followed one specific structure. Makes things really fast. An additional benefit is the billing transaction report API. I'm a nice person. I don't want to make my finance team go in, take that report, export into Excel, then go into the ERP system and do a matching game. It would be much easier if that report, the Office activity report, billing transaction report, same thing, if that report was sent as is to your ERP system. And that's exactly the billing transaction report API. They are two separate offerings. They always get bundled together just because they're the yin to the yang to each other. Very, very nice product, easy to onboard, and you're not fully tackling the phased approach we talk about, but it is an excellent way to gain efficiencies in some way in a relatively faster turnaround time. I'm going to go ahead and show you a demo of what this looks like in our user interface. If you are familiar with our user interface, this might be a little bit familiar to you. But when you are in our user interface and you're trying to send a confirmation, that's where I'm going to start. So you're in our user interface, you're about to send a confirmation, you select the as of date and the accounts and scope. And right here, there is an engagement number. You might not have this today. This is a configurable setting. So if you'd like to have that, feel free to reach out to our support team. But what is very, very interesting now is there is a drop-down list. This is not common for all firms to have this drop-down list. You must be integrated to our API. What we are giving you here is a drop-down list of what fields you can search for so you can find the right engagement for an account or a customer. You have full flexibility on what this word says. So instead of saying engagement number, it could say matter number, job code, WBS code, whatever you want to call it. You also have up to 5 fields in this drop-down menu, and you can select what those fields are. The only caveat is one of them has to be engagement number. The typical, it doesn't have to say engagement number, but has to be the engagement number. And our typical structure is the client name as the first identifier, engagement number as a secondary and mandatory identifier, then a project description of some sort, and then you have 2 miscellaneous fields. You can put whatever you want or not include them. I'll zoom in a little bit on the dropdown. This is what the dropdown would look like. In this case, we have 4 identifiers. The client code is the engagement number. Again, we could write whatever words we want here. This is all up to you. The key thing is the second one is going to be the engagement number. That's always the case. Once you proceed or you selected what you're going to search by, you're going to go into the search section. And this drop-down menu, this is the key value add to you folks. The information available in the drop-down menu will only be information that we inherited from you via API. An auditor will not be able to initiate a confirmation unless they have this, unless they've selected the right one. If they try to just input 0, 1, 2, 3 and not select anything from the drop-down menu, it will give them an error. This makes sure that the month-end report will be uniform. Huge value add for our customers, quick bang for your buck, and just makes your life really easy at the end of the month. If you keep playing this game, once you select something, it will actually just say which one you selected. And then, like I said, at the end of the month, you have a beautiful engagement number right here. This is a custom field that's also configurable, and you would just have whatever the auditor had selected. This is, of course, is just a sample, but this is what it would look like. The finance team could just click here and export, or you can go the extra mile and onboard to the billing transaction API. And then this information you see on screen will auto-direct directly into your ERP system. At this point, I've talked to you about all of our phases. I've talked to you about single sign-on. I've talked to you about a standalone product with engagement number and billing transaction. And those are all products that you would have to integrate to. Some different levels of difficulty as far as integration than others. Some are much quicker turnarounds, and all of those are supported by us. I do want to talk about a out-of-the-box solution that you might already be using or might have access to today, but not be using it properly. To introduce it a little bit, Engagement Manager is an audit tool owned by Thomson Reuters. It is part of what we call our Cloud Audit Suite. It is a audit workflow management tool. Since it is our sister product, we have fully integrated confirmation into the tool. So if you are currently a customer of Engagement Manager, you are using our confirmation APIs. You have full access to them, and everything, all the phases I've spoken about, those were all fully embedded into Engagement Manager already. If you are not an Engagement Manager customer, but would like something a little bit more out of the box, this is a very viable solution for you. So let me just kind of give you a quick overview of what it does. It's an engagement management tool, as I just mentioned. It has trial balance capabilities, work paper management capabilities, financial statements, reporting functionalities, and a whole bunch of other features. If there is something of interest to you, or if this is something that you have a bunch of questions about, I'm only going to be touching it a little bit today, but we definitely have sales teams and account executives who are more than ready to answer all of the questions for you. What I will mainly focus on is the integration. So going back to our little flywheel, I want to manage our accounts. I want to send client authorizations. I want to track in confirmations. Once I get them, I want to download completed confirmations. I want to do all this workflow. It'd be really, really nice if I could do all that within Engagement Manager. One tool, one place to do all that work. Remember earlier I said third-party tool like Power BI, Power Automate, internal audit tool. Well, really, there's a third option, which is just Engagement Manager. Everything all in one place. So I kind of mentioned this already. Manage your client accounts, so manage your clients, manage your signers, all of that's there. Our bank network is fully in there, so you can fully send confirmations to any bank within that within confirmation through Engagement Manager. You'll be able to track statuses, and once it's done, you can download the completed confirmations into the built-in work papers widget in Engagement Manager. I'll go ahead and show you a demo of what this looks like. So this is Thomson Reuters Engagement Manager. This is sort of what the UI looks like. I'm going to do a step-by-step. I'll definitely be skipping some steps here. Like I said, we can definitely structure a demo or another walkthrough, but this is just to kind of show you the confirmation workflow. So I'll go ahead and add a new engagement. This step is very critical. I'm enabling confirmations, so this will ensure confirmation is tied to the engagement I'm creating right now. I've already put in the client, so the Acme Incorporated, etc. I am just here at the second step, making sure confirmation is enabled for this engagement. Like I said, this is out of the box available to you. You do not have to pay anything extra outside the cost of the confirmations themselves, but this is 100% integrated for you. You'll go ahead and do steps 3, 4, 5. I didn't actually add these into the slides, but you eventually land on the engagement that you created, and you will have this amazing confirmations widget. A couple of callouts here, like I said earlier, there's trial balances, journal entry widgets, there's work paper tools right here, all in one place. Again, think of Engagement Manager as a engagement management tool all in one location. Confirmation is just a small piece of it, and fully integrated for you, so you don't have to context switch over and over and over again. I'll skip a few steps, but what I've done here is I clicked Add Request. The process I followed in this UI is exactly the process you follow in the confirmation UI, exactly the flywheel I mentioned earlier. Add the clients or inherit the client you already have, add the signers or inherit the signers you already have, add the authorizations, send authorizations, and then send the confirmation. So I went ahead and sent 3 confirmations. You'll notice here I have this lovely dashboard where I can track the confirmations. So the statuses are available to me. I can view it if I were to click view. All my accounts are in this other tab. I have all the account information, the bank I sent it to. This is a customizable grid, so there's a few things I can do there. And obviously it's paginated. What's really important to me here is sort of the ending. Once something is confirmed, I really would love to download the materialized PDF, the final artifact, the final confirmation into a work papers tool. And if I just click on this button right here, the save document, it will just flip into our the embedded work papers widget. What is really amazing is that work papers widget also has a unique reference ID. So that file will have a unique reference ID, and that unique reference ID will be to another Thomson Reuters product called Go File Room, which is essentially a document management system. So I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. It's really simple. I hovered over it. You click Save to Work Papers. You get a little photo that comes out, and then finally you're at the Work Papers tool. You can see what you just saved. It's all present for you. You can do some more work as part of your audit here in your work papers. And this is the reference ID I was mentioning earlier. This is a unique identifier for another one of our products called Go File Room. All right, we've spoken a lot about our partnerships, about our integrations. I did want to add this one last slide to kind of just level down, bring things into, or try to conclude things a little bit better. First product we talked about, single sign-on, adds security, adds a better user experience, gives you control, makes sure you're compliant with regulations, and is a very easy product to integrate to. It's it's quite common for us to onboard you in under a week, very much a standard practice amongst the industry. The next part is automating the confirmation workflow. This is the phased approach we talked about, where you have 4 phases, and each phase is going to eliminate a piece of the puzzle within the confirmation workflow. At each phase, you are eliminating redundancy, you are more efficient, you are saving time, and you're keeping your teammates as happy as they can be during busy season. The next one is a standalone product. It can be combined with automated confirmation workflow. It can be combined with single sign-on. It can be bought on its own. Be engagement number upload and billing transaction report. As a firm, I am not maybe fully ready to integrate to the workflow, but I would like to have some uniformity and some structure to my confirmations. And that's where the number upload is very, very efficient for me, because I am providing the WBS codes. I'm providing the codes that our auditors must use. And then I want to be really, really nice to my finance team. And I want to make sure that we have a easier month-end process so that we can pass along the cost to the client without having too much friction in that workflow. Finally, if you are looking for something a little bit more out of the box, Engagement Manager is a tool that we support. You might already be a customer of Engagement Manager. If so, I highly encourage you to start using confirmation within there. If you are not, we can definitely speak a little bit more about what that looks like. And like I said, confirmation APIs are fully in the backend using the essentially phased approach we talked about for our sister product. I'll go through some next steps here before jumping into Q&A. A typical process here is there's a sales cycle. We provide you info sheets, demos, and documentation. I'm lucky enough to join these calls. I will, or somebody on my team. So we might speak again. I'll go through in more depth about all of these products and can talk to you about basically anything and everything confirmation. Once we figured out the sales process, we will onboard you to a sandbox environment. Within that sandbox environment, you're going to get access to a documentation site and an SDK. So if you are not sure what those are, your technical teams will. And the most important thing, and something I find there's a lot of value in, is once you're in Sandbox, you are now an API customer, and you're going to get a team of consultants, product managers, development folks who will help you throughout the process. We've seen it all. We've done it all. We will help you and manage the project with you and answer any questions you have. Once we are good with the project end, we will facilitate your go live so that you can start using this in production and gaining some value. And when you're in production, you have access to a specialized customer support team. Something I'm quite proud of. I am lucky enough to have trained some of these folks and help build that team. These are folks whose sole job is to work on our APIs. So you get to essentially skip some of the front end stuff and really just work with our specialized technical teams. Thanks again for taking some time today. As a nice call to action, there is a QR code right here. If you want to go ahead and scan it, this will send you to a landing page where you'll be able to book a demo and hopefully, and I really do hope so, I'll be able to speak to you again, either directly or through an account executive or person. We have a team of hundreds of account executives here focused on selling our products and making sure your team is finding efficiencies. So please feel free to reach out to them. Feel free to book a demo. I'm really, really excited to speak to you again about some of these topics.